Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Before you get to the next item, I'd like to address the chair. When I received my agenda for this month's meeting, it was dated September 13, 2007. And on the agenda, item 10 read as follows: discussion and appropriate action on a resolution to redirect Texas Department of Transportation expenditures from an advertising campaign to building and maintaining highways. And for instance, Liebowitz, my name, on the agenda item. Last month, I specifically inquired of the chair what the proper procedure was to place a resolution on this agenda. And I identified the contents and the subject matter of that resolution. I was told what to do, what the proper procedure was. I honored that procedure. It was received by you. It was found, my request was found not to be deficient, and my request was placed on the agenda. Subsequently, it was withdrawn. And my question to you, Madam Chair, is why was the request that I made follow the proper procedure as outlined by you publicly last month? It was placed on the agenda by you and subsequently withdrawn. What is the basis for the withdrawal, and under what authority was it taken off?
Representative, yes, I did receive your letter. I received your request, and upon reading it and seeing the content of the request, I felt like it was not an issue that was a matter for the Metropolitan Planning Organization. There are some items, sure, items can be forwarded for agenda, and we do review them, and we have agenda meetings, and we talk about them. We have to make sure that those items are appropriate for this type of board. That item I did not feel was appropriate for this type of board at this time.
Okay, well, I gave you explicit detail of the content and subject matter of my resolution at the meeting last month. You did not inform me at that time that there was anything inappropriate about the subject matter of my proposed resolution. In fact, you gave me the procedure through which to place it on the agenda, which I followed, I honored, which is reflected by the fact that you didn't send me back any indication that there was a deficiency in my request. In fact, you placed it on the original agenda. My question simply is, why was it taken off? And on what basis and under whose authority was it taken off after being placed on the formal agenda?
The chair has the authority to set the agenda.
Which you did.
Those requests come to me.
And you gave it, and you forwarded me a copy of that agenda, and you forwarded a copy to everyone else.
Mr. Liebowitz, I don't want the agenda. It is not on the agenda today.
No,
We're not going to discuss it today. If you would like to meet with me and we can talk about that item.
I want to
finish.
Go ahead.
And we can talk about that item. I can thoroughly explain to you why that is not an appropriate matter for the Metropolitan Planning Organization. We can discuss that offline. We do not need to waste our time and the agenda time to talk about that now. It is not an item on our
process of how we're going about doing things is very important. It just is just as important as the end result. And the process through which I took the steps to place this on the agenda was the exact process you informed me at the last meeting was the appropriate process. And the question is, how are we going to go about doing things in the future, and why was it placed on the agenda and then usurpiously withdrawn?
It is, I set the agenda. The requests come to me, and we have agenda meeting. We determine what will go on the agenda.
Who's we?
It got inadvertently put on the agenda. We removed it. We subsequently removed it. We called you. Let me finish. We called you and we let you know that that was happening and why.
You
and then we confirmed it. Yes, I did, because I called you and I have a tight schedule. I called you. I did not get a return call. So my understanding was at that point I figured it was okay. So we moved forward. You did not return a call and say, no, I want it on the agenda. Well, I went back to my point. The chair sets the agenda, and we put the agenda meeting agendas together. You followed the procedure. You did what you were supposed to do. I've never questioned that, but I don't think that matter at this point isn't a matter for this board, and I don't want to spend all afternoon going back and forth.
Let me make sure I understand. Are you telling us that the chair sets the agenda unilaterally and without any input or oversight from anyone else, but you decide?
Me and the executive director will sit and talk about the agenda, and we set the agenda. That has always been the procedure.
And you set this on the agenda. You set my resolution.
It was inadvertently put on the agenda. We subsequently took it off.
Why didn't
it
you
was
tell me
posted.
that?
The agenda, the following agenda was posted. Once again, That item that you sent me and the details, after I read the details of that resolution, I did not think it was a matter that was appropriate for the Metropolitan Planning Organization at this time.
And why didn't you tell me when I made an inquiry as to what the proper steps were to place it on the agenda at that time that it wasn't appropriate, instead of me going to the time and trouble and effort of compiling the resolution, writing you a cover letter, and sending it forward? And why didn't you tell me at the beginning of the process that you didn't believe that the subject matter of my resolution, which I outlined in detail to you, was inappropriate for this body?
I did not have the details. You sent me the details.
Well, I told you that what the
No,
subject
sir,
matter
I'm not
was.
sure that we're going to move on with the agenda.
Okay.
We can get together and we can talk about it.
What is my understanding and everyone else's understanding as to what is the appropriate manner in which things are to be placed on the agenda for this organization?
We have agenda meeting. The items come before us, come before me. We have an agenda meeting and we set the agenda based on time factors, priorities, and based on what's appropriate for this board.
And what's inappropriate on my resolution?
It is not a matter that the NPO should be involved in.
In what respect?
Because it is not a matter for this NPO. We're a planning organization. We don't set agendas, or we don't tell other organizations or entities how to spend their money. That's just not, we don't do that. That is not a function of this board.
Madam Chair, more fundamentally, it may be good, since we are living in interesting times, to have a process that involves one or two other members of the NPO to set the agendas, because I can remember many meetings in my 9 years of being on this board that were really pretty sleepy-eyed meetings.
It's interesting.
Yes, it was not really particularly interesting to be on the board at that time. But now we're in interesting times, and I would suggest that maybe one or two other members of the NPO, selected by the NPO, get with you at a time certain before the NPO meetings and let us help set that. Otherwise, all the focus is on you. And that is not necessarily something you may want to receive the brunt of.
I was voted as chair, and at that time, when I became chair of this board, that was the procedure that had been followed for years. Now all of a sudden, we want to change that procedure based on one item.
We wanted to change it in the past before you became a member.
Big part?
We wanted to change it before you became a member.
Oh, well, see, I have no control over that.
I know. 4 months time, and you can't know it all.
Okay, because we're talking about some restructuring of this board anyway. We need to restructure our committees and make it more appropriate committees for this board. And that is something we're going to bring forward, and we can discuss in our next committee meeting, our next finance committee meeting. And so we can look at the structure of this board and see if there are those types of changes we want to make at this point.
Well, Madam Chair, just to go full circle on this discussion.
Representative, I'm sorry, we cannot, that item is a dead item right now. It is not on the agenda. We have the rest of the agenda. If you want to meet after the meeting's over, we can do that.
My point
That's
is
a dead
that
item.
I just want to confirm from you that it's your belief and position that the chair of this organization, to the exclusion of everyone else, can unilaterally decide what to put on the agenda and what not to allow to go on the agenda.
That has been the
correct?
procedure up until this.
That's a heck of a way to run democracy.
It has been run that way for years.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
parliamentary inquiry. Can you advise this committee of the process to remove an item from the agenda?
There are no written procedures for that. What we do is we place on the agenda based on priority, based on what we need to do, get done by a certain time frame, and what is appropriate for this planning organization.
Madam Chair, parliamentary inquiry.
Sorry.
And you're advising this committee that the agenda then is set by the chair and the executive director.
That has been the procedure for years, and that's when we continue to follow.
And those procedures are not written, correct?
To my knowledge, they are not written.
So your statement that those are the procedures in the past, and with all due respect, you're new to the committee, what do you base that decision on?
Well, I've been to meetings before. Also, I've read the policy.
You said you're not reading policies.
That particular policy is not written. It is a procedure that we follow. It's an unwritten procedure that we follow over the years. Now, we are in the midst of updating our policy manual. That will be something I'm sure will come up for discussion.
Thank you.
Item number 10.